In this video, we're going to talk about number sequences and patterns. Now, what I mean by this is we're looking for like a general rule or like kind of a mathematical rule to a pattern. Okay. Now we're going to keep it pretty simple. What we're going to say about a mathematical rule is it's just going to describe a pattern. And we're going to keep it very simple. The math today is not going to be very difficult. The key is going to be finding what the pattern is. That way you can tell what's actually going on. So like our rules are going to be simple. Like maybe the rule is add by blank. Maybe add by fives or add by sixes. Or maybe it's multiply. Multiply by a certain number. So our rules right now are going to be very simple. But this is actually the foundation of what algebra is. Algebra is all about finding the correct pattern to see what's going on in a question. Okay, but we're going to keep it pretty simple today. It's not going to be too difficult. For example, if I were to give you a list of numbers, let's say we go with 56, 48, 40. I'm going to put a blank here and another blank, and then 16, and then blank. So the idea is you're going to look at what they give you and try to determine what the pattern is. Okay, again, this is the foundation of what algebra is. You're looking for patterns. Okay, now we're keeping our rules pretty simple, so it's either going to be add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So looking at our numbers, you want to think, how are you going from one term to the next term? So how are we getting from 56 to 48? Okay, well, it's definitely decreasing. So we have two options. Either we're subtracting or we're dividing, because that's the only way we decrease. Okay. If you want to start with trying to do subtraction, try to figure out what's the difference between 56 and 48. If you need to use a calculator, not a big deal. You type in 56 minus 48, and you'll see that it's subtracting 7. Okay. Now that alone is not enough to determine a pattern. In order for it to be a pattern, it has to happen more than once. So you have to check another one. Okay, so let's check the next sequence. How do you go from, oh wait, sorry. It should have been minus 8, not minus 7. My mistake. Let's go ahead and erase that. So subtracting 8. Okay, so check the next one. Okay, how do you go from 48 to 40? Okay, and hopefully you see that one. That one's a little more easy. It's also subtracting 8. Okay, once you see something happen twice, it's almost a fair assumption that that's going to be the pattern. But notice they give you that other number. They give you the 16, so you can kind of check along the way. Okay, all right. So now we're going to continue that pattern. So 40 minus 8 gives you 32. Let's keep going. 32 minus 8 gives you 24. And hopefully, this is how you can double check. 24 minus 8 gives you 16, which it does. So now we know if we're for sure following the correct pattern, the rule. Okay, and then one more, just because they're asking for one more. Going from 16 to here, subtract 8, and we get 8 as the final number in the sequence. Okay. Now, if it asks you to write the rule for the sequence, that's all they're really asking you to just describe what's happening. Okay, so the rule for this question is subtract 8. And that's all we're really doing right now, is we're looking for patterns and we want to know what specific rule is going on. All right, let's try a couple more. Okay, so next example. Let's go with 6, 12, 24, blank, blank, 192. Okay. Again, if you want to try this on your own, go ahead and pause the video and then work your way through it. But if you still want to see how it's done, you can kind of watch. Okay, so first we need to figure out how it's getting from 6 to 12. Okay, so if we treat it like the other one, like the previous question, to get from 6 to 12, we're increasing. So we're adding or we're multiplying. Okay, let's say we went with add. To get from 6 to 12, you have to add 6. Okay, again, just doing it once does not prove a pattern. So you have to show that it happens more than once. So let's try it again. Going from 12 to 24, if we add 6, that gives us 18, which is not 24. So that means that this is not the right pattern. So adding 6 is not the correct rule for this one. So you got to go back and you try something else. Okay, so let's go ahead and erase these. Okay, so if adding is not the correct rule, we're increasing, so that means it must be a multiplication. So another way you can do it, to get from 6 to 12, okay, you could also multiply by 2. Okay, let's try that again. Going from 12 to 24. That time it works. 12 times 2 gives you 24. So it appears that this is the correct sequence. Now you just got to double check, right? So let's keep going. So 24 to here, 24 times 2, 48. Okay, let's try again. Times 2. 48 times 2 gives you 96. Again, use a calculator, not a big deal. And if we did it correctly, 96 times 2 should give you 192, which it does. So we're good. Okay, and again, the rule, if they ask you to write it, the rule is multiply by 2. Okay. All right, one more, and then you can try it on your own. This one may be a little bit confusing. That's why I want to make sure I go over it with you. 120, 40, 40 over 3, blank, blank, and 40 over 81. Okay, now hopefully something should stand out right away. Obviously, you're seeing these ugly fractions, right? So that should stand out. I'll kind of give you a clue of what's going on. So let's look at our first two terms. So going from 120 to 40, it's decreasing. So one of two options. Either you're subtracting or you're dividing. But with the clue of these other two fractions in here, it's most likely dividing. Okay, so to get from 120 to 40, or to try and help you out a little bit, you can also think, how do you get from 12 to 4? Okay, well, that's dividing by 3. Okay, now let's see if the pattern holds up. Going from here to here, if you divide by 3, remember, fractions and division are the same thing. So notice they just left it as 40 over 3, because it doesn't divide nicely. Okay, so that's kind of a nice way to check. Okay, so far our pattern is good. We're dividing by 3. Okay, we got to keep going. So 40 over 3, if you divide that by 3, essentially you're just putting another 3 in the denominator. Okay, so we get 40 over 9, because 3 times 3 gives you 9. Okay, and then if we keep the pattern going, we divide by 3 again. We're essentially putting another 3 in that denominator, so multiply that 9 by 3. And that gives you 40 over 27. Okay, and one last one to check. We're dividing by 3 again. So we're putting another 3 in that denominator. 27 times 3 gives you 81. We're good. So our rule would be divide by 3. Okay, so that's all we're doing, is we're just looking for patterns. And once we have a pattern down, we want to fill in the missing pieces. Okay, all right, couple for you to try, and then we'll be done. All right, and don't forget to make sure you pause the video, try it out, and then press play when you want to check your answer.